Alright, so today we're going to take a Wilderness Systems Tarpon 120. We're going to show you how to outfit it for fishing. This is the non-angler Tarpon 120, and we're going to add rod holders and an anchor trolley. So you can see here I've got all my accessories laid out. I've got my anchor trolley kit, my two flush mount rod holders, the universal mounting plate for the slide track system, and then a Scotty rod mount that we're going to add to that universal mounting plate with this. I've also got all my hardware and tools kind of pre-positioned and laid out. The instructions will have which tools and which hardware you're going to need to add to this, and we're going to walk you through that on the process here. We're going to add the two flush mount rod holders here, and it's a little difficult to see in this light, but Wilderness System does a really good job of pre-marking kind of the center of where these accessories are going to go, and there's a little dimple here that's in the shape of a star that'll be your starting point, but we'll cover some other tips and tricks to get those mounted properly. Okay, so I'm going to unpackage my first flush mount rod holder here and get everything laid out. Comes with a neoprene gasket that we're going to use as our template to mark. So remember that little guide that they have molded into the boat. That's going to be our reference point. Now there are a couple of ways you can mount these, and the typical way that folks mount these are at about a 45-degree angle, and you can see it's pre-molded and pre-cut right here to take care of that for you. The other way is to rotate it so that your rods are to the back of the boat. That way, if you're fishing in tight against brush lines, shores, you're not tearing off the tips of your rod while you're fishing. And what we're going to do for this particular boat is we're going to mount them so that the rods travel in line with the boat, and this template's going to help us take care of that. So you want to make sure that your template is oriented properly, otherwise you're going to have everything off kilter. We're going to use a Sharpie to mark that template before we cut and drill. You don't want to drill too many holes in a boat any more than you have to with that. So using my Sharpie, I'm just going to hold that template in place. I've got it lined up so it's pointing to the back. Then we're just going to do a little rough outline with a Sharpie. Then we're going to use Sharpie to mark our holes that we're going to drill and rivet with that, just in case. And what we're going to use is we're going to use a Dremel tool with a cutting bit to cut that excess material out of there and remove the center spot so that we can take our rod tube and mount it so when it slides in, it'll slide down into this. Now inside the rod tube are your instructions and your extra mounting hardware, but because we can't access this from any point here, instead of using screws, we're going to have to actually rivet this in, and we'll go through that riveting process once we get this center part cut out and get the rod tube placed down in there. We're going to drill out the holes and then add the rivets. Alright, so I've got my template, I've got it marked up. Again, I just want to check my orientation, that it is going towards the back of the boat and that it matches the angle. Everything's good. So now we're going to drill in and we're going to cut. Alright, got my Dremel going. Make our first little cut here. We're going to start in the center. And you can see that's got it right there. So we'll just drill out that after we put our gasket down to make sure that when we blind rivet it, that it's all good. So we'll hold that in position, and we'll use a 5/32 bit. It's what they call for with the rivets. And you just want to make sure you hold this down. Everything's in position. Okay, so we've got our holes drilled out for our rivets now. We've got our neoprene gasket in place. We're going to drop this down in, place our rivet in our rivet gun, and then we're going to pop rivet this down. It's important you get everything lined up properly when you're using a rivet gun, because you can't unscrew it and remount it. If you had to do anything, you'd have to drill that rivet back out of there. So you want to make sure you get all of those lined up properly the first time. That minimizes the amount of extra work you're going to have to do later to pop those out. So sometimes that neoprene gasket moves things around. So you can see here that I've added all the rivet heads in there, and that'll compress that down and compress this gasket and give us a good seal underneath there to minimize the amount of condensation or any water that'll seep through that seal. Alright, so got our rivets down, got that rod tube mounted in there now, good seal going on, and that one's ready to go on that side. So we'll switch sides here and we'll mount the second down tube on the back of the boat. We're going to do the same exact thing, move it so that the rod slides to the back.